Live. And we're live. Hi, Internet. How are you? I am here with Antonio, and Antonio and I have not interacted before, and I'm not familiar with Antonio, as is the norm. So I just wanted to say thank you, Antonio, for joining me today. And I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell everybody why you've decided to come have a chat.
Well, first of all, I want to say it's quite a pleasure to meet you, Shannon Q. I've seen you on a few hangouts here and there, and you seem to be a very nice individual.
Thanks.
One that seems to really enjoy these conversations and, keep the drama to the side. I mean, we can have a little bit of drama, a little bit of fun here and there, but, you
Sure.
know, keep it compact into a minimum. But I was just interested in having these discussions with you because um, I noticed that there's a couple of people from those who I tend to hang out with in my side of the community that's been coming on to Steve's channel and having these conversations with you. And I just was thinking, why not join the club, so to speak?
Sure. Welcome to the club. Well, I hope that they had a positive experience when we interacted. I'm not sure who it was that you were talking to, but I hope that they walked away with a positive impression of their experience in our discussion.
Oh, G-Man was there.
Oh, I like you.
Evan Nephilim Free was there. And I think they both had a positive experience.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So, is there anything in particular that you wanted to have a discussion with me about, or did you want to just, have a general chat and see how it progresses?
Yeah, sure. I'm I'm just assuming this. Would you identify yourself as pro-choice?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, I mean, if we were both pro-choice or pro-life, we wouldn't have too much to talk about.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
About how much we agree on things, I guess.
Sure. But yeah, I was just interested to um, and you can ask me questions too. I don't want this to be just a one direction thing.
Sure.
Uh, I was just interested in how you came to your perspective on what brought you to why you see yourself as a pro-choicer.
Why I see myself as pro-choice. Okay.
Sure.
Well, as a caveat, I don't. I'm not for late term abortion unless it is unless there's a danger to the health or life of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it comes to early term abortion, and I'm certainly not an authority on the topic. This is just my personal opinion. I believe that it should be the woman's right to choose what happens to her body and
Mm-hmm.
make that choice for herself. So obviously you're pro-life.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a particular reason that you would hold strong opposition to my position?
Well, first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
um, as
What's
a
this one?
as a Christian theist, my
Okay.
beliefs against abortion is grounded in His Word,
Mhm.
what He ordains in Scripture. If I'm going to be a consistent Christian, then that would be my first and ultimate foundation and justification.
Mhm.
Second, from a secondary standpoint, um, I think there's good science to back up the development of the unborn entity in the womb. And I think, science is advancing more and more to show that there's definitely, not merely as most pro choicers will refer to as a clump of cells, but a unique, distinct individual there that
So you
deserves
think
to be.
so I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you. I'm
no,
so
no, it's
sorry.
okay. It's okay. Go
I
ahead.
get excited sometimes in
It, it,
conversations when I hear things.
it's all good. These discussions are stimulating. Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple things that I wanted to bring up. When you said in the Bible, there's a passage in Numbers 5:11 through 31,
Mm-hmm.
where this is the NIV translation. Maybe it's different in other translations, but where they detail God essentially giving a woman a miscarriage because it's the test for the unfaithful wife. I'm not sure if you've heard of that passage.
I'm very familiar with that, actually.
Oh, okay, sure. So it seems almost like there's a biblical reference that would seem to condone or even encourage abortion but maybe just in a specific circumstance, like if you believe that your wife might be unfaithful, you can take her to a priest, and the priest, well, this is paraphrasing, I have it up but I can read it, but
Right.
you can take your wife to the priest, and the priest will take dirt from the tabernacle floor and mix it in with water and make her drink it, and if she's been unfaithful, God will put a curse on her himself
Right.
and cause her to miscarry.
In several translations, and I believe even in the NIV that you referred to,
Right.
it's referred to as thigh to rot. If you're
Okay.
familiar with that phrase.
Yeah, I think that's the King James translation, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Thyrot one?
Yeah. And then you in the NIV, it has something similar to those lines. It's slightly
It says
worded,
cause
but
the
it's
womb to
basically the same.
miscarry.
Yeah. Right.
So when it says thigh to rot,
Mm-hmm.
you don't believe that could be interpreted as causing a miscarriage. So you think obviously that's the correct translation.
Well, there's a couple of ways we can look at this. Number one, let's look at this from the perspective that we can grant that can be looked at as a miscarriage.
Right.
Um, in that instance, I don't think it would be a necessary condoning of abortion, because if we're
Okay.
talking about a woman who's been unfaithful, one
Right.
of the things that was very, very highly valued back then
Right.
was children in the womb, whether a woman could conceive children and give a man children. That was one of the things that was very, very highly valued back then.
Sure.
And um, one of the theories that's been brought by certain theologians is that could be looked at as a sort of punishment, if you will, for her
The mis
unfaithfulness.
the miscarriage is a
Right,
punishment.
right.
Oh, but wouldn't that still be somewhat considered to be an abortion? I mean, she obviously wasn't a proponent of having the miscarriage, so it's almost like a forced abortion.
Well, you could say that if she was unfaithful, then God took her child away from her.
But
You know,
so if it's God's choice, it's okay to eject a child from the womb. But if it's the
well,
woman's choice, it's not okay.
well, I mean, if you want to go down a theological discussion, there are many things to where it would be okay for God to do, but not okay for man to do, because we're in two totally different planes. He's in a sovereign plane, and we're not. So
Sure.
he has the authorship over life that we don't have, and in certain instances, it would
Uh-huh.
be only his right, his divine right, to do certain things that we cannot.
Okay. So this is these are the types of Bible passages that confuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's here's my perspective, and I'm always open to changing my perspective.
Of course.
But it seems to me like this is my sort of interpretation. The man goes away. He just has some sort of suspicion that his wife may have cheated on him, takes her to a priest, potentially against her will. There's no reference to how she feels about this or
Right.
whether or not
Right.
she's for it in the Bible, and doesn't essentially trust her word whether she cheated or not. God is going to find out whether she cheated or not, and God finds out whether or not she cheated by either, depending on the interpretation, allowing her to be okay if she didn't and carry on, with her life, or either causing her thigh to rot. And I'm not really certain exactly what caused your thigh to rot even means. or giving her a miscarriage, which would be God ejecting a child that is in her womb from her body. So that would almost seem as though God has condoned the ejection of a fetus from the body of a woman, so long as she and here's where it gets confusing to me,
Right.
because it's not that if your argument is that that baby that's in her womb or in any woman's womb didn't have the choice whether or not they were not going to exist, so it's not up to you to decide whether or not they get to continue to exist, which is the essential crux of the argument from my perspective. In that situation, the circumstances surrounding that are the same. That conceived entity didn't get the choice of whether or not they were going to be conceived, and that the only difference is that in that situation, God is making the choice as opposed to the woman making the choice. Now, because they haven't been born, they haven't committed any sin yet, so they would still be innocent. So from a moral theological perspective, I would see that them as being equivalent. If you're looking at it from a theological perspective, I mean, if you abort like a blastocyst zygotic phase or early stage fetus, they haven't sinned. So if you believe in a theological perspective, then they should, you know, you're eliminating the opportunity for them to sin, so they get to go directly to God. And God himself has done that in the past based on the Bible. If you buy into the, I guess, the NIV translation. So where I mean, and we don't just have to talk about theology, we can talk about other things, but that's always confounded me, that passage. And I've never had somebody who ascribes to theology have a conversation with me about it that didn't end in just sort of like just vitriolic rampaging towards me. So I appreciate you having a calm conversation about it with me.
No problem. And if anyone were to like take it to that level, I just think that's just tacky. It's just disrespectful, and it doesn't help anybody get anywhere.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Now, again, I don't know if anybody can get a straightforward interpretation that this is an approval of abortion. I mean, you can look at it a number of different ways. If someone wants to interpret it that way, I guess that's one way to look at it. But but like I said, if you look at it from the other side of that, maybe that was a punishment that God put on a woman for, you know, being unfaithful, and that was a big deal to women back then, to be able to bring children into the world.
Right.
And that's one part of it. But the other part of it is the substance that she took was sort of a tonic, if you will.
Yeah.
And it was just to test her unfaithfulness. There's no reason to think that if they suspect that she was pregnant, that she could deliver the child into the world and then still do the ritual after she delivered, you know, take the substance, and if it reacted, it would still react whether she was pregnant or not. There's no reason to think that they didn't wait till the child was born if they thought there was a child in her womb.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Let me see if I can rephrase that back to you so that you can let me know if I understood you correctly. So the ritual itself was the taking of a tonic. And there's nothing in the Bible that explicitly says that you suspected the woman of being pregnant. So she could have potentially not been pregnant.
Right.
Or it could have happened after she gave birth to the baby, if she had been pregnant. So it could have taken place at any phase in time. It could have taken place with her not pregnant. It could have taken place during a pregnancy, or it could have taken place after a birth.
And you talked about the NIV version about it causing a miscarriage.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if that's one interpretation that's looked at, because not all interpretations seem to indicate that it was a baby in the womb. But even if we accept that interpretation,
Right.
uh, it cannot be necessarily deduced to this is a permitting of abortion, because there's
Right.
two ways you can look at it. You can look at it as maybe this permits abortion, or you can look at it as maybe it was a punishment.
Sure.
You can
Do
look
you
at
mind if I read the passage out just so that other
yeah,
people that are listening to this have a point of reference? Would that be okay?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
It just dawned on me that other people may not be familiar with the passage. Okay, so this is Numbers. I'll start at 27. So if she has made herself impure and been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her abdomen. It will enter her. Her abdomen will swell and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. If, however, the woman has not made herself impure but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. This then is the law of jealousy. When a woman goes astray and makes herself impure while married to her husband, or when feelings of jealousy come over a man because he suspects his wife, the priest is to have her stand before the Lord and is to apply this entire law to her. The husband will be innocent of any wrongdoing, but the woman will bear the consequences of her sin.
Right, that version indicates pregnancy clearly, and then
Very.
you have versions like the KGV that don't seem to indicate pregnancy, like dietary. It doesn't. She could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that she was pregnant.
Okay.
So that's the other part of that, is that she could have still taken the same substance. If they thought that she was unfaithful,
Right.
she could deliver the child, take the substance, and she wouldn't be able to have any more children after that if she was unfaithful.
Right. So it'd be forced sterilization, no matter what way you look at it.
Right.
Okay.
It would.
Okay.
It would. It would.
I'm not sure how I feel about all of those things, but all right,
Well,
we
I
can
mean,
continue to discuss it, or we can move off of it. That is just that's one of the passages in the Bible, and here's why I harp on it a little bit, and this is unfair to you. That's one of the reasons that I kind of deconverted out of my faith, and I was an Anglican, a very devout one. Was I read the Bible because I thought, you know what, I've never really read the Bible. I've only ever had passages dictated to me. I should read it. And that was one of the passages that I got to that I had to throw the book down and walk away because I had no idea the contents of the Bible had things like that inside of it
yeah,
until I
yeah,
read it for myself. And that particular passage will be with me for the rest of my life because it shocked me so much, because I looked at this book as a guide to morality for myself, because
sure.
it wasn't what I thought it was. So it's unfair to you that I've been harping on it so long. So I
No, no, it's no
apologize for
problem.
that.
It's no problem.
Right. Okay. So is there any other particular aspect of the, pro-choice, pro-life um dialogue, or um that you would like to bring forth so that we
Sure,
can discuss?
sure.
Sure.
One of the things that is important to understand is that um, when pro lifer or when pro choicers are talking to pro lifers,
Mm-hmm.
and also, and unfortunately in many cases when pro lifers talk to pro choicers, and I've been guilty of this as well, we
Okay.
make unfair accusations and unfair conclusions about the other side. Like, I had, do you know this gentleman by the name of Hawk Tie Champ?
Yeah. Absolutely. I've had tertiary interactions with him. I've
Sure.
never had a direct dialogue with him myself, but I've been in a hangout that he's also been in, for sure.
Yeah. I bring him up for a reason,
Okay.
to outline this point. I'm man enough to admit this, and I had a discussion with him about, I want to say about 2 years ago, around the first time in my early interactions on Google Plus. It was about 2 or so years ago, 2.5 years ago or so.
Okay.
Uh, I made an accusation towards his position that he's being pro-choice means that he did not love or he did not care for unborn children, and that was an unfair accusation for me to make.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to say to
Yeah,
somebody.
after
Yeah.
after hashing it out, even in his pro-choice position, after hashing it out for a while, I
Mhm.
realized where I erred in saying such a thing. So I made an unfair assertion against his position, and I apologized to him later on for that.
Good for you. That's a respectful thing to do. Good for you.
Yes, and on the other side of that, there are a lot of pro-choicers who would say that we don't care about women. We want to like keep them just stuck in the house barefoot and this and that, and that's just not true.
Right.
In fact, in my personal interaction, I'm not speaking for all pro-lifers, but as a male in my personal interaction,
Mhm.
most people I've come across who were pro-lifers were women, not men.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard for me to accept this notion that this deal about being pro-life is something that's centered on men and this alleged patriarchy and uh, all these other ridiculous attacks that get launched against people who are pro-life. And then I've
Right.
even heard vicious attacks like saying that women are, being self-haters to men, when they accept the pro-life position and they fight passionately for it. Where do you stand on that particular issue?
That that women who are pro-life are self-haters.
Well,
Uh
like self-haters or things like or men. This is about men inserting themselves where they don't belong. Things like that.
okay. Well, I think that that might be an over politicization that could derail dialogues because it's no longer about the topic itself. Instead, it's about people attributing attributes or giving attributes to the individuals who are engaging in the dialogue instead. Now, when you say that a woman who's pro-life is being accused of self-hatred, I think that that is very much unfair because if you want to espouse to believing that a woman has every right that a man does, that includes the right to make up her own goddamn mind. And if she makes up her mind and her mind doesn't agree with you, then that's great. That you don't get to tell her how she should think under any circumstances. And that
Absolutely.
that right doesn't stop when she doesn't think like you. So I think that's unfair. Now I would disagree with that opinion. I think that there needs to be um, availability of um, abortion needs to be something that is available to women for myriad of reasons. One of the reasons, one of the most important reasons in my mind is that if it is not made available in a healthy, clean, sterile environment, there are women who will resort to alternatives that are dangerous and will result in potentially her own death as well as the abortion taking place. There are also instances where um inarguably there are instances where the woman's life and personal health are at risk, and abortions need to be available then so that a woman's life isn't at risk. Now, do I agree with everybody's reasons for attaining an abortion? No. No. There are instances where that privilege I get, well, privilege is a horrible choice of words. I don't think that there's a good choice of words for this dialogue when it comes to
Like
getting an abortion.
something.
It's not something I would do personally also, unless it was an endangerment to my life. It's not a choice that I would make for myself. I don't think under any circumstances. I mean, I've had a miscarriage and I've had a child. So
Sure.
I've had a stillborn baby, and I've also had a live one. He's almost 7. So
Awesome.
yeah, so it's not a choice I would make for myself, but I don't get to make choices for other people either. And that's also, I think, a slippery slope when you start to say this is I get to decide for you. Like, if you get to decide for a woman whether or not she has the availability of a clean, safe, sterile abortion, and it's not a child that she's capable of taking care of, like, or that has the mental ability to take care of, or she feels like it's a detriment to her health, or she's going to be bringing that child into a dangerous situation. Those are very real things. If you remove that ability for her, she's either going to find an alternative that's dangerous, or she's going to have a child that is in for the horrible, potentially dangerous life. So,
Sure.
I mean, I can't make that choice for anybody else. But yeah, sorry.
So,
That's my opinion in a nutshell, I guess, for what it's worth.
no problem at all. I appreciate that. And in the interest of respecting Steve's channel and respect of you, of course, if this were like more of a debate type format, like I
Right.
do a lot of, I mean, I did, and I'm going to start them up pretty soon once I get a new laptop. I do a
Okay.
lot of hangouts that called Bring It Pro-Choicers, like Bring It Evolutionists. I know you've heard what true criticism. Yeah.
I have, yeah. For the first time, actually, 2 days ago, I met Ron
Yeah,
here.
that's where Bring It Pro-Choicers came from. It was derived as a sort of spinoff from Bring It Evolutionists.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, out of respect and for Steve Channel and for you, of course, I'm not going to press you to like justify your position or nothing like that. I just want this just to be like a free exchange.
Yeah, thank you.
This
I
is just
appreciate that.
sort of hear you out. Now,
Okay.
like I said, if I do these hangouts and you come into a Bring It Pro-Choice, and I'm going to press you, and I'm going to press you hard.
Okay, well, noted.
All right.
This isn't a position that I publicly, advocate for it. So this is just
Right.
the only reason we're having a discussion about it is because it seems to be an issue that's important to you, and I wanted to foster the dialogue. So yeah, please continue.
Sure. Now, when you say you don't agree with abortion for every reason, let's say, I don't know, a woman's just being irresponsible.
Right.
She just wants to just get it on with just every guy she meets, and she doesn't use protection or nothing like that. She knows she's being irresponsible, but she doesn't care. And then she just sort of just arbitrarily says, I'm just going to walk into an abortion clinic and just kill the fetus and then just go back to business. Would that be something that you'd be against? Would that be one of those examples?
Oh, okay. So against is a strong word, and here's some of my rationale. Now, do I personally agree with that decision for her? No. I think it's irresponsible and selfish.
Right.
I think it's irresponsible and I think it's selfish. But here's the overreaching problem in my mind. Who gets to police who deserves an abortion? Who gets to stand at the doors and say, are you being promiscuous? Or are you in an abusive relationship and you're afraid that you're going to get beaten if somebody finds out you're pregnant? Are you Are you afraid that this is going to have negative health impact for you? Another one, full disclosure, I have multiple sclerosis.
Right.
So
Uh-huh.
I actually had, that's one of the reasons I had the miscarriage. And I had a very difficult and risky second pregnancy.
Yeah.
So if I get pregnant again,
Mm-hmm.
there's significant risk to me um, physically. Now, I'm not sure I would make that choice for myself. I might, go through the risks again. But I mean, it was scary towards the end. I could no longer stand. I actually had to be induced because I no longer had the proper use of my legs towards the end of it. So, um, I mean, who gets to, and if I had to come to that decision, and it was, and I do have friends who've had to have, I have a friend whose name I won't mention who actually had to have one, and it broke her to pieces because if she hadn't, she's severely diabetic and she would have gone blind because she had I can't remember, I think it's optic neuritis. I can't remember the exact name of the condition that she had. And she had a rough time because she was in there and she felt like there was some little girls who were on their phones who were just like, this was just another day at the office for them, and she was torn to pieces because she wanted that baby. So that's my issue. Who gets to stand at the door and police who has the right to have one and who doesn't? Who gets to play mind police? Who gets to play judge and jury in those situations? Do you
Mm-hmm.
condemn the people like me and like my friend who who have real dissonance and really want those babies, but just our lives could be at risk, to
Mm-hmm.
have to put our lives at risk because there's
Mm-hmm.
other people who are abusing the system that allows them to have that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. And to put this out there, I'm not the kind of person that speculates on if a woman is considering abortion, whether she was acting like a whole tramp or a slut or something like that. That's
Right.
unfair to do that. And this is my position.
Sure.
Guys can be hoes, tramps, and sluts too.
Yeah, they can.
You know? And I think it's unfair to just label such put such labels on just women when
Right.
I believe that men and women are equally capable of the same irresponsibilities.
Yeah, but the decision falls solely on a woman's shoulders,
Right.
though, and so does the judgment, the aftermath of that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, like I'm just here to just sort of just hear where you're coming from. I'm not going to like pressure on anything because
That's
I
okay.
mean, if you want to find out many of my answers to these sorts of issues that you bring up, you can just look at my mini hangouts and then you'll know where I come
You
from.
can give it to me. I can take it. You give it to me. Maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe you'll
Maybe
enlighten me in a way.
okay, maybe I can talk about one thing.
Sure.
You
Please.
mentioned the nature of abortion to being more unsafe, if you will, if women don't have access to that choice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, have you are you under? No, I don't want to say under the impression that sounds a bit rude. Um,
I'm not easily offended. Use whatever verbiage you like, and we can clarify later. If I feel offended, I'll ask you to clarify. I won't. I don't fly off the handle. Don't
yeah,
worry. I'm easy.
are you under the common view? I guess I should say the common
Okay.
view
Sure.
that before or prior to, like I'm assuming that you live in the United States or Canada, right?
Canada. Yeah, in Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay. Well, since you're up north from me,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the 1973 Roe v. Wade case.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, Prior to that, uh, there's this view out in pro-choice circles that said, like, prior to that, you had these vast numbers of women dying from illegal abortions. Are
Mhm.
you familiar with that view? And if that's the and is that the view that you hold?
Uh, I'm not. That might be a fair assessment of my view, but I'm not familiar with um, the specific history that you're referencing or any statistics that are affiliated with it.
Right. That's a common view that's put out by a lot of people who subscribe to the pro-choice position.
Okay.
But there's a whole lot that's missing from there.
Okay.
And just to make it very clear, I'm not saying women did not die from illegal abortions. That would just be ignorant and stupid to make that statement.
Okay. So you just don't think it was as widespread as it was made out to be?
Right, right.
Okay.
According to an obstetrician, and this was, I want to say it was in 1960-ish, somewhere around there.
Okay.
According to a pro-choice obstetrician, her name was Dr. Mary Calderon.
Okay.
When most women got abortions, they got them from physicians that were well respected in their communities, and they were generally very, very safe procedures. The numbers of women who went and got those procedures and actually died from them had been very, very low for a very, very long time. You know, I think they were a little bit. They were higher than they were they were low in 1920s and up. They were obviously lower because
Right.
medical technology wasn't as advanced then.
Sure.
But even in those times, they weren't that high. There weren't these like thousands of women just dying and going to these doctors who were using these unsafe procedures. There's no data to back that up whatsoever.
Okay. Can I ask for a little bit of clarification on the information that you just gave me? So if I'm understanding correctly, what you just said was there was a doctor in the 60s, which was before Roe v. Wade, before abortion was, readily available and legal,
Yeah.
who said that the most people, even when it wasn't legal, didn't die because physicians were conducting the abortions in a safe manner for them. So what you're saying is the reason that they didn't suffer or die was because even though it wasn't legal, they managed to find a physician who would do it for them safely, even though it was illegal. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let me read out something for you here.
So that's confusing to me because that means that the reason that they were safe is because they were able to find physicians that were willing to usurp the law so that they could keep those women safe, even though it was illegal.
Here's some interesting information for you. It says
Sure.
In 1960, actually, yeah, it says in 1960, a former medical director for Planned Parenthood estimated that 9 out of 10 illegal abortions
Right.
were done by licensed doctors. They
Okay.
treat their physicians as such. Abortion, whether therapeutic or illegal, is in the main no longer dangerous because it is done well by physicians. It is being done well by physicians.
Okay. So physicians are still, so is your argument for you, I'm assuming, and this is an assumption on my part, and I'm sorry for that, that you don't want abortions to be legal.
Well, as I said earlier, my first and foremost foundation is where I stand as a Christian, what
Right.
God wants me to do, what He expects from my life. And my secondary position is there's a unique human being in the womb, there's a unique individual.
Right.
And I don't see why size, level of development, environment, or degree of dependency should justify killing that entity in the womb, especially when even according to Christopher Hitchens before he passed away, even he remarked on the advancements of science to confirm the individuality of the unborn in the womb. And I think, and I believe he was pro-life. I can't confirm that absolutely, but according to many different accounts, he was pro-life himself too.
Okay. So, all right. So it's not, you're not arguing that they shouldn't be legal and accessible. You're just arguing that from your biblical perspective, it's immoral, and you just kind of want to get that message.
That's my
Okay.
ultimate foundation. But let's
Okay.
say I, became an atheist tomorrow.
Right.
I still would have a very, very firm position against abortion. There's this,
Right. Well,
um,
atheism doesn't tell you anything about somebody's
right,
position on abortion.
absolutely, that's correct.
Yeah.
There's this lady, her name is like Christina Kruftalinski. I'm probably destroying her last name pronunciation.
You're
but she,
trying. That's
but she had a debate with Matt Dillahunty, and Matt Dillahunty being the pro-choice atheist, she's a pro-life atheist.
right.
And there are a growing number of people who are of the secular camp who are adopting the pro-life position. So I
Right.
think whether you're religious or not, you can make a strong case for the pro-life position.
Well, the only thing atheism tells you, like somebody saying I'm an atheist, the only thing that tells you about that person is whether or not they believe in God.
Right.
It doesn't innately tell you anything else about that person as an individual. I mean, I suppose there's a certain demographic of people that are more likely to fall into atheism, and you could, I guess, sort of form, a mental schema or heuristic that tells you what you might think about that group of people. But I mean, that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But really, atheism is just the answer to one question.
But
As
I
somebody
agree.
said, I think earlier
Absolutely. I agree with there's this pro-life advocate and philosopher. He's a very smart guy. His name is Scott Klusendorf.
Okay.
And he informs Christians, and I think he makes perfect sense that if you're going to engage atheists in the public square on the debate of not evolution, but abortion,
Right.
then your argument can't be simply God says it's wrong in the discussion.
Well, yeah, because we don't believe in God, so we'll be like, "That's nice."
Right, exactly.
What God says means not at all to me.
And I think even from our perspective, and he holds the same view too, that there's more that you would have to put forth than just putting his name out there, because just saying his name and just ending it, that's laziness and that's a sin. God actually expects more
Like
from
lethargy.
yeah. God expects more from his followers. I don't know why I forgot the verse, but I'm sure you're familiar with it. To give a defense for the hope that's within you, preferred to give an answer for the hope that's within you. I'm pretty sure you heard that passage before.
I'm not
You
sure.
haven't?
No,
No.
I'm
First
not
Peter
sure. Not in contact.
2:15.
Yep. There you go.
Ah, you have
Yeah,
an
I knew
assistant.
that one.
I appreciate the assist there, Steve. See, I know so many passages and then I forget them, and then a non-Christian have to remind me. That's embarrassing.
Agnostics interjecting in our conversation.
One of the two that I know off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to use that against me later. but yeah, we are expected to give an answer for the hope that's within us, and it's a lot of laziness that's going on, and not just the abortion topic, but in putting forth the gospel message as well. That people just who say to the Christians just throw God's name out there and think that just answers everything, and
Right.
that's not biblical whatsoever. And there's better, more expected of us. So if I'm going to come to you about what my position is, I'm expected to give arguments. I'm expected to be researched. I'm expected to listen to what you have to say. I'm expected to put forth what I believe in meekness and fear.
Right.
there's a humility that's demanded of us as well. So I'm not, if you ever come to any of my hangouts, I'm not going to just tell you God said it's wrong. I'm going to actually give you very, very deep reasons and arguments for my position.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you've been very, very respectful and easy to talk to. And I'm really enjoying chatting with you, Antonio. I'm happy to meet you today.
I'm happy to meet you too, Shannon.
Even if we disagree on pro-choice, it's a nice conversation to have. It's a pleasant conversation that we're having.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm still a little stuck on the point, and I'm sort of sorry to harp on this and come back to it. This doesn't have anything to do with the Bible at all.
Sure, no problem.
This is the point that you made about the doctor that said the reason that women weren't dying or becoming sick or harmed or permanently damaged from attaining abortions was because they were able to find physicians to do the abortions for them, even though it was illegal. I mean, that's still sticking with me, and I believe that what you're telling me is true. And if what you're telling me is true, that's almost even more reinforcement that why would anybody want to legislate it away? Because all you're doing is taking either that the woman's alternative is either to find one that's dangerous, because women are going to do it anyway. It's going to happen. Attempt to do it themselves, find somebody to do it that could potentially endanger them, or find a doctor that will do it for them, which apparently the doctors were readily able to do, but then the doctor is putting their license and themselves at risk in order to keep these women safe. And I don't like any of those alternatives.
Right.
But that seems to be what you're saying happens when safe abortions aren't legal.
Well, I'll be charitable and address your point in this way.
Be charitable. Oh, I like that choice of words, Antonio. Thank you for being charitable with me, but I can take it. You don't need to be charitable.
I think it's important to engage on what you bring forth, whether the numbers are low or whether the numbers are high. I think it's a fair thing to address that point.
Sure.
And where I come from is this. Let's say that women are just going to just do it anyway, and then they're going to do things that are more unsafe for their body because they're just going to break the law anyway. I mean,
right.
But since when did just doing something anyway have anything to do with the fact of whether it's right or wrong? Or I mean, people are going to murder anyway. Does that mean we should make murder legal, or killing people for no reason arbitrarily legal?
I see what you're doing here. I understand what you're saying is, that there's a certain subsection of people that are going to murder. If we make murder legal, then more people will take advantage of that and will murder, is I'm guessing what your argument is.
I'm just saying that just because people will do it anyway, despite its illegality, it's not necessarily an argument against the position, against the pro-life position.
Right, because it doesn't speak towards whether or not it should be morally permissible in and of itself. It just says that it's something that people are going to engage in.
Right. Now, I would apply that reasoning. I think that reasoning is more applicable to like when we had prohibition, like in the early, I think, was it the 1920s or so?
I don't. I'm from Nova Scotia. I'm from Canada. we just kept right on drinking through that.
If
we bootlegged all the news for you.
If the time frame of my history is off, someone can correct me later. But
it was ratified in 1919 and repealed in like 1930 something.
Okay, yeah. Now, I think there was no reason whatsoever for them to ban alcohol. I think that was really stupid, and I think they did create And I think they create. I'm a social drinker. I'm not against drinking alcohol, but there was definitely a bigger problem that was created when they banned it. Crime rates were through the roof. They institute those underground black market speaking. Yes. And that's one of those situations to where you just don't make something illegal because you do have that danger. I don't think that necessarily applies for the abortion issues because we would have to hash out the fact that is this a human life in the womb, or is this an entity that deserves rights to be protected, or like if it were the case that making murder legal for whatever reason made murder worse, that would not be a reason to make murder legal.
Right.
Just even if it did go up. I think the case is much harder to make when you're talking about abortion because we still gotta hash out the parts where we disagree. Is this a person? It's this,
like, when does consciousness begin? And what is consciousness? There's a lot of existential questions that can't really readily be answered. I mean, back to the murder thing though. Do you really feel like I'm not, please, for the love of God, don't make murder legal. And I feel more so like it might be a false conflation too, because I mean, if they made murder legal tomorrow, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't murder anybody. Like, I'm about 100% certain I wouldn't be like, now's my time.
I'm 100%.
Killing.
I'm 100% certain you wouldn't.
I mean, abortion's legal now, and I've never had the inclination to attempt to, I haven't been like, you know what, I'm just gonna put babies in me all day because they can just suck them right out. It's like,
yeah, I think that's the case for you and a lot of pro-choicers, and and in my early pro-life advocacy and my early pro-life my early pro-life apologetics when I was younger, I used to be a lot tougher and a lot more unfair about it, to where I looked at a lot of women who just use that argument. I mean, I'm just being upfront with you. I looked at a lot of them as sluts and this and that. And that was
women
wrong.
Who are having abortions? Yeah, I think that is wrong. I think that's a false assumption about most of the women. I mean, I know women who have had abortions, and the women that I know that have had abortions, they were not promiscuous women. Those were not.
In many cases, they're absolutely not. That's right.
Right. So I know a woman who has had an abortion because she was raped. Like I mentioned, my friend who was going to lose her eyesight. So those instances, I couldn't not support those decisions. Now, if I knew an individual who was just, I mean, and I think the more people you talk to too, I mean, the more people you'll talk to, the more you'll realize, I think, that the instances that everybody proposes as the example, it's the slutty woman is always the example that's put forth, right? Well, do you think it's okay if a woman's just, being a slut and getting pregnant all the time and getting their babies sucked out of her? Do you agree with that? No, of course. Nobody's going to be like, yeah, sure. I'm on board with that. I hope she has as many abortions as she wants. I hope she has 100 abortions. I'm all for it. No one's going to say that. But I think that's a lot more of the exception to the rule when it comes to this sort of thing than it is the norm. But it's presented as though it's the norm, and I don't believe that that's necessarily fair. I think a lot of the exceptions to the rule are the one. Yeah, I think a lot of the exceptions to the rule, a lot of the harder cases, a lot of the ones where it's more difficult to just say, yeah, maybe it's the right choice for her because of her health, or because she was raped, or because she's in an abusive situation, or you know, or because the fetus itself isn't going to be viable, or because she doesn't know if she's going to be able to financially just support this child, or a lot of those are the more common reasons.
It's
And
interesting you bring that up because there's a lot of PC culture now, which tells us to believe women in certain respects. Like there's been a lot of charges against men for just people believing women without evidence of rape charges and things like that. I think that's ridiculous, but in other aspects, I think, you know, believing women is a very valid thing. Like when a lot of women say that abortion is a tough decision and it's very, very hard. I think that's a very, very valid thing to just say, you know what, women are the ones who, I'm not saying men don't bear any sort of brunt in this, but more often than not, women bear the biggest brunt of this. And when they tell you that this is a hard decision, when they tell you that this is tough and nobody necessarily thinks this is so awesome, then I think there's a legit case you can make to just believe what they're telling you.
Yeah, sir. Of course, if this wasn't a hard decision, I would have some serious questions over whether or not that woman had borderline personality disorder or was some sort of sociopath. Because how could it not be a hard decision? Like, how could it not be something that you had to grapple with? Right? And so when you say we should believe them, then what conceivable reason would you have not to believe them, that it's a hard decision? I mean, I don't understand the relevance of the whole PC culture blaming men thing to this particular discussion.
Well, I bring that up because there's certain instances to where you can believe women for legit reasons, and instances to where you gotta really check out the facts. You can't just arbitrarily just believe every claim of rape that's out there.
No, but I'm not sure what that has to do.
The reason why I bring that up is because I was just saying that if we're talking about a culture that is advocating for believing women, then I believe that would be one of those cases to where that has a legit basis for it.
Okay, I think we're getting on a whole different discussion now, but
no, I was just sort of just expressing. I was just sort of expressing where I'm coming from, because there's a whole lot of conflict with. Unfortunately, you've had a whole lot of people who have taken advantage of just making bad accusations towards men, and you've had the fact that when you've had women that were raped for real and there were legit cases to those ends, those get overshadowed by the women that take advantage.
Oh, okay. So, all right. No, let me make sure I'm understanding.
The good cases, the legit cases, tend to get overshadowed and overlooked because of, you know, all the I guess you could say the bad and the poisonous feminism that has infiltrated that part of our culture.
Right. Okay. So you're making the two analogous, I think, if I'm understanding correctly. So you're saying that it's similar because in my description of how the classic slut gets put forward as the example for why abortion, because of course all those sluts are going to be like, woo, abortion time, I can't wait to get all my legal abortions. So you're making it analogous to, believe it, the women who are legitimately raped,
right?
They're not as likely to be believed, even though they should be believed, because there's women who will level false accusations against men. And now we're in a culture where the Me Too culture, where people will believe a woman no matter what, when you of course should have, if you're going to make an accusation like that, there should be a burden of proof, because you're going to ruin a man's life.
Exactly.
And I shouldn't, I could say, hey, Antonio raped me, and there with like,
Right.
but you didn't. But
Right.
yeah, I see what you
what I'm
mean.
getting at is people need to
I'm
use
getting, yeah.
nuance. People need to use nuance and not let
Mhm.
the harm that people who've taken disgusting advantage of the Me Too culture,
Mhm.
don't let, those horrible things cloud your judgment on where women are coming from when they talk about things like abortion. Because you got to look at these things in a nuanced sense. You can't say that
Sure.
because people have taken, if we want to talk about the general issue about believing women, you can't say that, oh, you're not just gonna believe women because women have done you have had women who have done disgusting things to
Sure.
poison that general concept. We just gotta look at this from a nuanced perspective and say
Right.
there are legit times to where believing women is a real thing. And I think the women who have taken horrible advantage of that have done harm to the women on the abortion side. Because you may have people that, and sadly, I've had this experience talking with certain people that
Okay.
would use the fact that they were scarred by the Me Too culture to try to say that they can't take their claim seriously on how they feel about abortion. I've actually had discussions like this to where I got really, really upset and had to explain to them that you got to use nuance when you're addressing these issues. You can't say just because these women or a certain sect of women done harm over here, that what these women are saying over here on this other side doesn't have a
Right.
legitimate issue to it. Does that make
Right, because then
sense?
you create. I think I'm understanding what you're saying. So it essentially it boils down to it's dangerous to create stereotypes based on uh any group. So the
Right.
right. So in my example about, the sluts getting in line for their free abortions because they love abortions so much. And in your example, it's women crying rape and the Me Too culture being so overly PC and keen
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
supporting women in every way
Right.
that so that to a point that it's gone past empowering women and it's now given them the ability to level false accusations that are believed just out of principle because everybody is so afraid of saying I don't believe you because then they'll be labeled as another attacker and it becomes a witch hunt.
Absolutely. And stuff like that can do harm to other things that women talk about. And if women are going to be talking about other things like abortion, then you're going to have people that are going to, in a disgusting way, use stuff like that to just dismiss what they're saying about abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, which is why it's a good idea to have dialogues like this that are on, level ground where everybody's being respectful and just hashing out ideas. So I appreciate you doing that with me in the public forum because they're not easy
Absolutely. But
discussions to have.
there was another part that I want to touch on when you brought up the issue about illegal abortions and the harm it can do.
Yeah.
This is this may sound kind of wrong.
Oh, good. I love things that sound kind of wrong. Let's go.
It may sound kind of wrong at first glance,
Okay.
but I mean, I'm just gonna be upfront and honest with you. I
Okay.
think if we're talking about an issue that's dealing with the human life and
Mhm.
um, protecting that, then if she decides to do something that's going to be a risk to herself,
Oh, I think I see where
and
you're going.
yeah, it's like
She gets what she gets if she's gonna try to hurt that baby. Is that what you're gonna? Is it?
it's
Oh.
like she.
Oh.
I'm sorry, like choices have consequences. It's one of those types of things. Choices have consequences. Like I don't wish a woman to. Uh, I don't wish for that to happen to any woman, but choices have consequences. It's just like
Right.
I
But
don't.
it's easy for you to say because you'll never be in a position where you even have to consider that choice.
Well, I mean, I think in there are certain positions that men will never be in. But I wouldn't. I mean that women would never be in. But I would never use that against the women as an argument. Like,
no. Okay, can you give me an example of a position that a man would be in where he was making a choice about his own body and his own health and potentially his life, that a woman would have the right to step in and tell him how he should proceed?
well, maybe not necessarily his own body, but definitely his life. Like you look at the entity in the womb that's conceived, that's his child. A woman will never be in a position to where um, she's at the mercy of another person to whether their biological child lives or dies.
Okay, so that's not an example of a man having to do something with his own body that a woman would have the right to decide for him. That's an example of a man attributing essentially what at that point is a part of a woman's body to himself. And I get it. Like, I mean, if you want that baby, like, I don't negate that emotion. If you want that baby and you don't have control because that baby is housed inside a woman that does not want to keep that child, and she makes the choice to abort that baby, you don't get a say in that. And I can understand how that would be a heartbreaking situation. And I do not
It's
definitely
granted. It's
underestimate the fact that I understand that's difficult.
It's definitely granted that that's not an issue of his body. I get that. But you also mentioned the issue of his life. You would agree that any person's biological child is an issue of their lives, right?
Okay, not their individual life. No. Not at the black. I need to take a composure break for a second, because she kind of I'm not going to articulate this well. She gets what she gets if she makes that choice aspect of things is difficult for me, because I think it makes the issue too simple. And you've already said that it's nuanced, right? So that makes it it makes it seem like it's black and white. It makes it seem like she's making the choice to abort this baby out of sheer selfishness, and that's the only reason anybody would do it. And I don't think it's that simple.
Well, you would agree that in many cases, emotional pain is just as bad, if not even worse, in many cases than physical pain, right?
In many instances, I think it varies in degrees and by person, but certainly, absolutely, I would agree that there are circumstances when that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, there's definitely variables there. What I'm getting at is the women go through emotional pain when they talk about this issue, but so do men. What do you tell the man? What do you tell the man who has, let's say you had a couple who was so excited and looking forward to having a child, but for whatever reason, his spouse had second thoughts, and she went and got the procedure done. There's nothing he can do about it.
No.
How do you tell that? How do you explain to the man that I'm not going to say that you believe this, because you're not going to tell me that his emotional feelings don't matter. Or I know you.
I said quite the opposite of that a few moments ago. As a matter of fact.
Absolutely. I just don't know how most pro-choicers would explain that to men who have dealt with depression, even in this issue, because you've had cases to where this happened, to where a woman first, was excited about having a child, then she had second thoughts later on, and she got an abortion, and there was nothing he can do about it. And as a result, you end up with depressed men because of it.
Okay, so here's my counterpoint to that. That makes it seem, again, as though the woman was just like, off I go to get my abortion, then I'm going to go get my nails done. You know what I mean? It just makes it seem as though the woman, as somebody who could be in that position, I know how difficult that would be to grapple with, to make that decision.
I gotta interrupt you for a sec. I'm on a timer, but just hold that thought. I'm gonna come right back in a few seconds on my phone.
Okay, sure. I'll go see the chat for a second.
All right, sure.
You go right ahead.
Well, in the interim, I guess we could do a couple announcements.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
One, the Non Sequitur Show episode 4, Unholy, is up with Pam Whistler. She's the editor-in-chief for American Atheist. We had a really good discussion with her the other day. The podcast is on iTunes, and then the video is on the Non Sequitur Show channel. It's worth listening to. She's going to be back, and she's actually going to debate, I guess, G-Man on the existence of God or something along those lines. Not quite sure, but that's supposedly what's going to be going on in one of the next podcasts coming up here. So we also got on Sunday, Nathan Oakley, Ranty, and Anthony Riley, 3 well-known flat earthers, will be on at 2:00 Pacific, my channel, along with the Rumpus, Geostriber, and Sean Hufford, and possibly Red's Rhetoric. And I guess they're finally going to give us the evidence for flat Earth. Yay!
Finally.
Yeah, I guess we're all been wrong this entire time, so they're finally going to come on and just do it. I think it's going to actually be the Island of Man stuff, if people are familiar with that, which the Rumpus completely obliterated to no end on Geostriber's channel recently. So I don't think they saw that, or at least not really paying attention to it, because they know Rumpus will be on my channel with them. I didn't want to surprise them. But we also got Zod the Prophet, or Prophet of Zod, is going to do a debate with Gret Geiler on Monday. And I
cannot wait for that, by the way.
Yeah, that's going to be on, what is that, on the moral something or other? Something about morality.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, I'd have to go look it up on the calendar. I wasn't expecting to make announcements, but we're waiting for him.
He put out a fantastic video today, by the way. Everybody should go check.
Has good stuff.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, he really does. And I think on the 10th, which is Saturday, Emperor Atheist has a debate with Kent Hovind, if I'm not mistaken, on his own channel. So, anyways, those are the announcements. Let's wrap this up in about 15 minutes. There will be an after show on the Great Debate Community channel. Everybody's welcome to join, and Antonio especially, and Shannon. I will stop by too, because I have a couple questions I want to add my input on. I know Max hangs out. I know the Holy Spackle and a few other people have asked to join. So that'll be happening immediately after this particular video. So usually they go about an hour to an hour and a half. So you got about 15 more minutes.
Awesome. Okay. Welcome back, Antonio.
Thanks for having me back. My volume is absolutely ridiculous on my phone. It sucks. So you might have to adjust my volume, Steve.
Oh, I can hear you, but I don't know what it's like for people in the audience.
I raised it, but it still sounds good.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So we've got about 15 minutes left, Antonio, before we're all wrapped up. So I wanted to just finish my point.
Real quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So my point was you brought up a lot about, how a man feels when he has the loss of control of a woman aborting a child that he wanted. And I really feel like that negates the fact that that was a difficult decision for the woman to grapple with. And she's also going through some emotional distress, unless, like I said, she's some sort of sociopath, which is the exception to the rule, I would argue. I believe that there's equal parts. I don't think women are just like, you know what, screw you, I'm having an abortion because abortions are awesome. I don't think a woman would just come to that decision lightly, or at least I would like to think that. And perhaps, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, and there are going to be cases where perhaps women are like that. But I don't believe that that's a reason that they shouldn't be available. And like I said, there are instances where, somebody brought this up in the chat. What if a woman's health is desperately in danger? What if it's somebody like me, where I have multiple sclerosis, and a pregnancy has the potential, where most of my lesions are in my spinal column, to paralyze me? Do you think that I should be forced to follow that pregnancy through, as difficult as it is for me to contemplate the idea of having to have an abortion? It would tear me in pieces. to do it. But if somebody told me very early on that I had a 90% chance of being paralyzed, I feel like it's a decision that I might come to. Do you think that I should have to follow that pregnancy through knowing that there's a chance I'm going to be paralyzed?
Well, I look at it this way. There are many things we do in our lives to where the stuff that we undergo
Mm-hmm.
can cause us great injury. I mean, there's a lot of things that people can do, like just raising children, that can cause them injury. You might get into a car accident driving your kids to school and be paralyzed for life.
Right.
I
But you
mean,
can't
that'll
avoid
make
you.
you stop
That's not a
being a parent.
circumstances you can't predict that circumstance though. No one can. If somebody says, if you get in this car, you're going to get into an accident and you're kind of probably be paralyzed for life, you'd be kind of an idiot to get in the car.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm getting at is, even if, whether you can predict it more or less or not, uh, I just think there's a level of responsibility that comes with having your children.
Of course.
You may not be able to predict that at all, but you know there's a risk that can happen. But on the other side of that, given your condition, um, I I'm not I'm not trying to presume that I know your body better than you do or your doctor.
Mm,
Please understand that that's not what I'm putting
sure.
out there.
Yeah.
But you never know. It might not go the way you think it does. If you have
So
another
I should roll the
pregnancy, it may
dice.
go fine. Um
I should,
that
roll the dice
if
and
I
be like,
mean if the
well, there's a 5% chance that I won't get paralyzed. So I like those
I
odds.
mean
Why not
if
have a baby that I
if
can't take
that
care of because I'm paralyzed?
I mean if that's the way you see it or that's your perspective, but um
And I take every precaution to not get pregnant for that reason because I don't want to be in a position to make that choice. However,
mhm.
accidents happen. You can take every precaution. And I'm not going to be celibate for the rest of my life. I'm sorry. I'm just not. There's a
uh,
nope. Hard no.
um,
So, I mean,
although I'm a
there is
pro-lifer who
potential. I could get
advocates
pregnant, and there is potential that I could have that choice presented in front of me. If you were me,
mhm,
and a doctor looked you in the face and you were only a couple weeks pregnant, that it's not even a fetus yet at that point. It's essentially just like a zygote, or like it's past blastocyst onto zygote. Like there
right,
has no
right,
brain formation. There's no way it could have consciousness at that point.
mhm.
And a doctor said, hey, if you continue with this pregnancy, let's say that there's 100% chance that you're going to get paralyzed or you could die. And one of those two things is going to happen. You would do what?
It's like you said, to address the first part, uh, you would do everything you can to prevent pregnancy. But in the second instance, if there's a real case to where your life is on the line,
Mm-hmm.
then that would be a case to where it's better to save one life than to lose two. Or let me put it to you this way. Let's say in that case, I would
Yeah.
agree with you that that would be an instance to prevent abortion. Now, would you then join me on my side and say, okay, I can agree with you here, but would you join me in banning all sorts of other abortions that were outside such a circumstance?
Well, I don't feel like it's a trade situation. I don't feel it. I mean, if you agree with, I don't want you to agree with me so that I will acquiesce to one of the things that you said. I want you to tell me the truth about what you would do. And I don't want it to be that you're saying, well, I'll agree with you in this instance if you'll concede that I have a point on my side. I want you to, tell me honestly what you think without it having to be tit for tat, if that's fair. However, I mean, I go back to what I said previously about, I think it's more nuanced than that. And I don't know who would be standing at the door policing whose circumstance is good enough to deserve an abortion. And there are circumstances where they're necessary and required, or where people will seek out more dangerous alternatives. And I think that that's all proven. But I mean, I respect your viewpoint, and I can understand where you're coming from, even though I'm on the other side of it. I mean, I can empathize that.
Right.
I can empathize. I mean, I understand it's difficult. It's not something that, I mean, it's something that I grapple with as I'm talking to you. I have to really think. So, I mean, that's something I want to acknowledge while I'm talking to you. I don't disrespect your position, but I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I can give you that trade.
There's nothing wrong with that. You can disrespect my position all day.
No. I respect your position. I respect your position. That's what I was saying. I'm sorry if you misheard me. I said I can respect your position, and it's something that I grapple with myself.
Sure, that's totally fine with me. In the interest of understanding this is Steve's hangout and that he was gonna end shortly. Do you feel that I've sufficiently addressed all your concerns and questions? Like I didn't try to dodge anything or leave anything out. I always do the best I can to answer every single question that's given to me. Do you think I've addressed your concerns or
I
as
feel that
clearly
you
as
were a
possible
very
that I did?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought that you had
No,
a pause.
it's good. That was the gist of it. Go ahead.
Okay. I feel that you've been a very respectful and enjoyable dialogue partner. And for that, I thank you, because these aren't easy discussions to have, and they can get heated. And I thank you very much for coming to talk to me. And I don't feel like you were dodging anything. So, but I mean, there are some questions that obviously weren't answered to the satisfaction that they would change my position, but this isn't a debate. This is just a discussion, and
Sure, absolutely.
However it went is how it went. So,
Absolutely.
there won't be any critiquing on my part that you've been anything but respectful to me. So, and
I
you've
really
been very
appreciate you.
patient, and I appreciate your tone and your cadence in our conversation as well, because this is something that could have easily escalated, because it's a hot button topic. So thank you.
Awesome. Likewise. And I do believe you're one of the most respectful persons I've talked to about this topic. And uh, it was an amazing discussion. And I try to uh, I'm gonna come with a greater flair if it was more of a debate format. I would come with a greater flair, but at the end of the day, I'm not out for any ill will towards people or anything like that. We all have positions we stand by and what we believe in, reasons for why we believe them. So, yeah, I really appreciate this discussion, and I do hope maybe at some point when I'm doing hangouts again, that you'll drop by and then we can maybe get into the deep philosophical debates in these issues. And I don't expect to change anybody's mind, not necessarily in this 1.5 hour exchange, or maybe in future exchanges when I'm talking to people in general. I don't necessarily expect to change the person's mind I'm speaking to. I think
Right.
one of the things that's important and that you'll see from whatever the side of the debate you're on is you do the best you can to put forth your position, and the people that's watching are the ones that you really want to reach. I mean, I do hope, and I think you hope as well, that one or the other can reach the other person. But the main importance is the people who are watching this. What do they get from it? What do they gain from it? And they can make up their own minds. And
Yeah.
those are ultimately the people that I tend to reach. But if I can reach the person I'm talking to, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's my say on that, and I appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, certainly. Right back at you. I appreciate it. So, for the sake of time, I think Steve wants to have a post hangout
Yeah, a lot of
hang
people
out.
are asking for post hangout. We got hit by the vote down, thumbs down bot. So,
Oh, what's a vote down bot? So
well,
people don't
we had
like us?
4 in a matter of like 5 seconds. It went from 4 to 40. And so they really hate you, Shannon.
Do
really,
they? Oh, I'm the worst. I don't blame
the
them.
worst.
I
No,
can
they
I
don't.
can
They
hardly
don't.
tolerate myself.
They don't hate. They don't hate Shannon. They hate me.
It's
That's what they
no, it's a bot. It's a bot. It's okay. But the way I look at it is whether it's likes or dislikes, it all goes to trending. So it's all good.
hate. Amen. That's right.
So but yeah, I don't know. There's a person or personage. I think there's more than one that has some vote bots, and they go on my channel and a few other channels that I'm aware of, and do that. And
Oh, well, I'm the worst.
I know one of them. I know one of them, but I don't know the other person's name per se. I know their handle, but I don't know who they are.
Oh.
They're somebody who really hates the Geek Room, and so anybody that associates.
Oh, I'm on the Geek Room tomorrow night.
Yeah, so I don't know if those are because I associate with the Geek Room, you associate with the Geek. I have no idea, but anyways,
I like the Geek Room. They're nice.
Yeah,
I don't care who you are. I highly discourage just thumbing down arbitrarily for no reason. I don't do that on anybody who
I don't either.
disagree with.
I've actually voted up videos of people that I know I don't like, but if I like their video, I go, yeah, shit, I'll vote this one up.
I voted
happens.
especially
But I mean, I'm not going to sit my time, even if I had 40, I'm not going to sit there and, oh my God, can you imagine how long it takes to do 40 account? I mean, why would anybody waste their time with that? You have to log out, log in. I don't know.
Or maybe 40 people just legitimately can't stand me and Antonio, and they're just about our discussion.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll find out in the comments section, because the comments are a lot more interesting than the live chat sometimes. No offense, live chat, but comments are much longer, so you get a lot more detail.
I think you're a good person, Shannon. I try to be a cool, collected person, but I get real passionate real quick, and I may sometimes not seem like the most pleasant person to talk to, but you sound like a better person than me, so maybe I can take.
Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. Even Rose Patton couldn't get mad. She's not Rose Patton. Even Godless Girl couldn't even get mad at her.
Well, she was nice.
Even said, "You're too nice for me to troll." To her.
That's awesome.
What does that tell you? Godless Girl, the queen of trolls, the welfare queen.
Nice to me.
Lobster Girl said she's too nice for me to troll, because that's what the plan was. She was going to come on and troll the crap out of you.
She was good. Really?
That's what she does. That's her area of expertise. That's her superpower.
Well, I'm sorry I ruined that for her.
But she,
my fellow Christian deists can learn a lot from you.
Oh gosh. That is a high compliment. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's maybe
You're very welcome.
I don't know if I deserve that, but thank you. That's kind.
So I'm going to end this, and I will start a hangout on the Great Debate Community Channel or Bullinators. I'm not sure which one of us. About 15 minutes. I know we have some people that want to join. You both are welcome to join. I'll give you the links. If you don't, that's fine as well. So thanks for everybody for watching. Leave a video, just leave a comment in the video description actually what you actually thought of the actual discussion. I thought it went pretty well. Don't worry about the likes and dislikes.
Yeah, I'm super self-conscious, and I go read them all so that I can judge myself.
She does.
I do.
Really
and I
does.
cry.
If I get one bad comment on here, she forces me to send it to her so she can analyze what went wrong.
So I can reevaluate my life and what I'm doing with it. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll